The node numbering scheme is important just because in the bandwidth or in the banded matrix, whatever we select is part of the analysis. That is, the banded matrix will have only the elements, or banded matrix will consist of only the elements which are taking part in analysis. So smaller the bandwidth, so computation time is less. So we should see to that in the band or in the bandwidth, if it is less, then we can analyze the problem quickly, right? So yesterday we had in the yesterday's class we had discussed about the bandwidth. So what bandwidth is mathematically? It is B equal to D plus 1 into F. D is the maximum largest difference in the node number occurring for all the elements of the assemblage, right? So F is the number of degrees of freedom at each node. So that is what is bandwidth equal to, mathematically speaking. Now, why node numbering plays an important role in the assembly or the characteristic, global characteristic or global stiffness matrix, right? So let us now look into the first example here, right? So is the screen better visible clearly? Is the screen clearly visible?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Now you can see the figure 1. The figure 1 is, I have used a numbering. I have used a numbering here so that along the longer side means I am increasing in the direction from left to right, where the number of columns are more compared to the number of rows. So I call it as a longer edge for any problem. So I start increasing, writing the node numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and what I do is just come close to the node number 9 and write it as 10. So, and I repeat the process in the opposite direction, 10, 11, 12, 13 up to 18. Now, the same thing continues for the whole mesh or whole body what I have analyzed. So, according to the half bandwidth, that is B equal to D plus 1. D plus 1, whole thing multiplied by F. Whole thing is multiplied by F. What is happening here? What is happening here? So in the first element, let us say the first element, you take any element, it will be same. The first element, you can see here, the difference between the maximum difference D has to be maximum largest difference between the node numbers is in an element, and all the elements are considered for its determination. Now 1, 2, 17, 18 node numbers, 1, 2, 17 and 18 form the first element. Therefore, D, the maximum difference between the any two nodes is 2 minus 1 is 1, 17 minus 2 is 15, 18 minus 17 is 1, 18 minus 1 is how much? 17. So that is what I have written it here as D. Capital D is equal to 17 plus 1 into, so it is a one-dimensional element, so have used a number, sorry, it is a two-dimensional plate element, therefore it has got 2 degrees of freedom at each node, 2 degrees of freedom at each node. So what I am doing is now writing the same thing here. D is 17, the difference between adjacent number. 2 is the degrees of freedom, this won't change. So 17 plus 1 is 18, 18 into 2 equal to 36. So 36 is the bandwidth of the matrix, means it can have 36 rows and columns in its band, right? So you can see in the band here, you can store an optimum of 36 terms here according to the band. Now, I am just recreating it with the second way of representing it. I am numbering it differently now. Now refer figure B, second figure. Now I am starting numbering here in this element, first element, starting from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And instead of continuing the numbering at the below 9, I'll start from the beginning, that is at where I have started with 1. Now here at the starting point it is 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 and 17. So this process continues. This process continues. What happens is, now if I take the maximum difference in the first element, you can take for any element in this, any element if you select, it will be the same. So if I take the difference between the node 1 and 2, it is 1, between 2 and 11 it is 10, and between 10 and 11 it is 1. And the difference between 10 and 1 is 9. Difference between 10 and 1 is 9. So this is the maximum largest difference between the node numbers in an element, and all the elements are considered for its determination. So among all these elements in the whole problem, whichever is the largest difference, we are considering it, right? So if I follow the procedure same way, numbering according in this direction and again numbering in this fashion, so the largest difference here is 9. So let us use it in the formula. D is 9 plus 1 multiply degrees of freedom, here is 2, because it's a rectangular element. It will have 2D, this is a 2D element, therefore it will have 2 degrees of freedom. So 9 plus 1 is 10, into 2 is 20. Now instead of numbering along the longer side and repeating in the as earlier phase, now we have numbered both the numbers in the same direction. So there is a decrease in the bandwidth of equal to 36 to 20. Is this point clear? If I just number it in a different way like the previous one, the bandwidth has decreased from 36 to 20. Is this point clear, everybody? Can you understand this? Okay. So this is one way of reducing the bandwidth. Now I will try to still reduce it by considering the next way, right? So instead of numbering along the longer side, instead of numbering in fashion, I am numbering along the shorter side, that is along the vertical fashion, where the number of rows are less. So number of rows are only 5 or 6, whereas number of columns are 9, right? So let us see in the next slide. Okay. Now you can observe here. In the first figure, that is figure C, that is in the figure C, if I start numbering along the shorter dimension, that is across in the vertical fashion, that is node number 1, node number 2, node number 3, node number 4, 5 and 6, right? So what I have done is numbered along the vertical fashion across the shorter dimension. Now I'll continue from the last node itself where it has ended. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, so on. I'll continue and close at 12, right? So I have continued the numbering process along the shorter dimension and came back with the same way. So now let us take the same thing continues for the whole problem, and what we do is select the largest difference among all the elements, largest difference of the node numbers along all the elements. So 2 minus 1 is 1, 11 minus 2 is 9, 12 minus 11 is 1, 12 minus 1 is 11. So 11 is the largest difference between any element. So if I take the last element, you can select any element. So 44 minus 43, it is 1. Similarly, 53 minus 44 is again 11. 53 minus 54, 1. 43 minus 54 is 11. So it means the largest difference according to this numbering fashion will be 11. Now if I use this 11 in the formula and 2 degrees of freedom, 11 plus 1 into 2 is 12, plus 12 into 2 is 24. So compared to the previous case where it was how much? 20. Now it has again increased. The bandwidth of the matrix has increased from earlier 36. It was decreased to 20. Now it has risen to 24. Right? Let us try one more way of numbering. So according to this numbering fashion, we will proceed along the shorter side itself. But instead of repeating in the opposite direction, we will come back to the first way itself. That is, we will draw in the particular fashion in the starting from the first direction itself. We will number accordingly, right? Can you see the screens? Okay. Now node number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? Now I'll come back again to the first step, that is first row, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Right? The same way I'll continue, 13, so on, 14. So this completes my numbering with shorter dimension, and I am repeating along the same way instead of coming back from the opposite end. Right? So now let us take the largest difference between the node numbers of any element. You can take any element in this whole mesh. So 2 minus 1 is 1, 2 minus 8 is 6, 7 minus 8 is 1, and 7 minus 1 is again 6. So the largest difference between the 4 node numbers is 6. So if I select the 6 as the largest difference, in the formula, B equal to 16 plus 1, sorry, 6 plus 1 is 7 into degrees of freedom is 2. It's a two-dimensional element, therefore 2 degrees of freedom. 7 into 2 is 14. Now, for the same mesh, we can number it in 4 different fashion, and among all the 4 methods, first method included 36 as the bandwidth, second included 20, the third method yielded us 24, and now how much it is? And now it is 14. So if my bandwidth has to be less, I should always number according to the shorter side, and also I should follow the same direction instead of drawing in the opposite direction. So thus a shorter bandwidth can be obtained simply by numbering the nodes across the shorter dimension of the body, right? So this is what a short notes question is about. Explain node numbering scheme. Up to 5 to 6 marks they can ask you. You have to draw your mesh in such a way that one side you draw it as a smaller side, that is 3 to 4 or 6 rows. You can write a number of columns like 8 to 9 columns. So when you make use of it, you can number it also and find out the bandwidth and compare all the 4 ways of numbering, and you can show bandwidth is less, that is equal to 14, when it is a shorter bandwidth, when you can numbering along the shorter side, right? So this you have to show it for 6 months. You can expect this sort of a thing in the first module or first chapter, either theory, concept. So is the point clear about node numbering scheme? Node numbering scheme, is it clear to everyone? Are you understanding it? Everybody, is it clear? So daily you have to write what I teach here. I am sending.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm sending you the materials also. It is your duty to write it as a and maintain it as a notes. If you just keep it as it is, then you will not understand whatever I'm teaching in every class. So it's your duty to write down whatever I teach in the class separately, right? Okay. The next thing what I'm supposed to explain is all about the banded matrix. What is a banded matrix? Just now I told you the band consisted of all these things. In a banded matrix, non-zero elements are contained within the band, and outside the band elements are zero. That means in this global stiffness matrix, where all the stiffness terms are there, non-zero elements are there. Other than zero, elements are only considered, and zero terms are considered outside the band, like how you see here in the screen. So these are zero elements which are considered outside. So only this part of the band is considered and written as a matrix. See here, K11, K22, K33, K44, K55 and K66. Only these things along the principal diagonal elements are considered as first row in the banded matrix. Then correspondingly K12, K23, K34, K45 and K56. All these are non-zero elements. So this forms the second column. Similarly, K13, K24, K35, K46, these form the third column. Similarly, K14, K25, K36, these three form the fourth column, right? So NBH is the banded matrix half bandwidth. We always call it as half banded because whatever lies on the right side of the principal diagonal elements will be the same on the left side of the principal diagonal elements. Always it is a square symmetric matrix. Stiffness matrix is what? It's a square symmetric matrix. The elements on either side of the principal diagonal elements are symmetric, and also it is a square matrix. It's a square matrix, right? So in the matrix, all non-zero elements are on either side of the main diagonal joining the elements K11 and K66, and these are within the band whose width is given by NBH. We call this order as NBH, half bandwidth, right? Then the half bandwidth or semi bandwidth is defined as the greatest number of coefficients of matrix in any row of the matrix from and including the leading diagonal to the right hand side non-zero coefficients. Its value can be calculated in the equation, right? Now, the main use of the banded matrix is in reducing the space required to store the given matrix and minimize the solution time. So if the number of elements stored in the matrix is less, then the computation time is also easier. So solution is easier. The banded matrix is used to store only non-zero elements. Zero elements are neglected. These can be stored compactly. Now, instead of storing the whole, the 6 by 6 matrix, now it has reduced to 4 by 6, that is 24. So instead of storing the whole 6 by 6 matrix, using bandwidth, I can store only 24. That is, instead of 36 elements, we can manage or get the same answer using storing 24 elements or 24 terms. So that is where the banded matrix is useful. That is n into NBH is the matrix size instead of n into n. So this is banded matrix is all about. Is that clear? Is the concept on banded matrix clear to everyone? If you read after my class or after getting the material, then you can easily understand it. But once you have to write and practice, then only you can come to know what I am trying to convey. Okay. This is all simple theory compared to others. Now, I told you there will be stress strain relations and other relations which are important for our analysis, or whatever the problem, if I am continuing, I can make use of them using the stress strain relations. So one important thing is the strain displacement relation. That is, so we know strain in any direction epsilon x, I can say it as change in length by original length. So this derivation I'll take it later. So I'll just sum it up what constitutive equations are. Like, we know that stress is proportional to strain within elastic limit. Stress is proportional to strain within elastic limit. That is according to Hooke's law. So we'll make use of the same concept for all the material. So materials here, what we try to say is they are homogeneous. Homogeneous means their property remain uniformly distributed across the all cross section. Then it is isotropic. Isotropic in the sense the property is uniformly changing whenever there is applied. Iso means same. It is always varying uniformly in all the directions, right? And it is a linear elastic material. Linearly elastic material means when I plot the stress versus strain graph, right? Linearly elastic material will behave according to a straight line. That is, as I increase the stress, the strain also increases gradually. So as the loading increases, as the stress increases, strain also increases. So for a linearly elastic material, the stress strain curve will be a straight curve in the beginning, right? Now we are discussing about these things: linearly elastic, isotropic, and homogeneous material, right? So if I convert the given problem and extract the stress strain relation, first I will find out the strain, then multiply with Young's modulus, I will get the strain in any three-dimensional element or two-dimensional element, right? So in such case, I know what strain is change in length by original length, or I can say it is the partial derivative with respect to its direction, dou u by dou x. Similarly, epsilon y equal to dou v by dou y means v is the displacement in y direction. Therefore, its partial derivative will give the strain in that direction. Similarly, epsilon z is given by dou w divided by dou z, where w is the displacement or deformation in z direction. Therefore, dou w by dou z will give the strain in that direction. So once I have obtained the strains, if I multiply with Young's modulus E into epsilon x, what I get is stress in that direction, sigma x equal to E into epsilon x. Similarly, sigma y and sigma z, I can obtain sigma x, sigma y, and sigma z. Now these are direct stress and direct strains. Now what I should do to obtain shear strains? Shear stress and shear strains are also there because the member is loaded both laterally and longitudinally. So gamma xy or nu xy is the shear strain in xy plane. Similarly, you have gamma yz and gamma zx. So all these are three shear strains. So shear strains I can calculate, and if I multiply with Young's modulus, I can obtain the strain in other directions also. So these things can be obtained using our strain displacement relation or constitutive equations. So this derivation will give us how to find out the value of strains in the equation, right? Now, what strain displacement equation is all about, how to calculate it. Now please refer to the sketch as shown in your screens. I will try to enlarge it so that you can still make it can be seen clearly on your screens. Yeah. Now I think the things are clear. Is it seen properly? Is it seen properly?
Sir.
Okay. Now, what I am trying to explain here is, consider a two-dimensional element A, B, C, D. This square is A, B, C, D is a two-dimensional element A, B, C, D, which lies in XY plane, right? When a force acts on the element, if there is some force acting on the element, it undergoes deformation. Is it obvious? So if I apply load in any one direction, deformation will be along that direction, and also on lateral direction also it will be there. So that is what the dotted line is all seen about. So the ABCD is now changed to A dash, B dash, C dash, and T dash, right? Displacement in the x direction is u. In whatever in x direction it is u. Displacement of all A, B, C, D points is u in x direction, and v in y direction. It is in y direction it is v. Now what will be the new position of this? A dash, B dash, C dash, D dash. So dx is the length of AB, dy is the length of AD. Is that clear? Now, when it is changed its position, or when it has got deformed, you can see there is alpha, which is the angle which has laterally changed, or the angular change in it, laterally, whatever it has been. Similarly, beta is the angle along vertical edge which has been deformed, right? Now, what happens if that is so? So dx, earlier it was dx, now it has been replaced by dx plus dou u by dou x into dx. Dou u by dou x because that is the strain in that direction. With respect to x they have calculated. Similarly, dou u by dou y is the strain along y direction, that is the shear strain along that direction, the strain along the lateral direction multiplied by dy. Then you have a dash, b dash, c dash and d dash. Totally you can complete it. Now what we have to take out of this is, in general, normal strain is defined as the ratio of change in length to original length of the body. This you know. Strain in the element is ratio of change in length to original length. Okay. Then I'll now come back to the original direction. Okay. Now look into this. Now strain epsilon x equal to a dash b dash minus ab. A dash b dash is what? The new position of the length ab. A dash b dash is this distance. A dash b dash minus ab is the original length, that is this length. Okay. Divided by ab. So if I write accordingly, ab is nothing but our length dx. Ab is nothing but our length dx. Now, what is a dash b dash square? A dash b dash square. A dash b dash is the hypotenuse, this triangle. A dash b dash is this triangle, right? So a dash b dash square is the side, that is ab, this distance square, that is, I can say this as x and this as y, x square and y square. If that is so, I have to name what that length is all about. That is nothing but dx plus dou u by dou x into dx square. Then vertically it is dou v by dou x into dx, because there is no dx or dy present along the vertical edge. So this is our change in length, a dash b dash square. That is the strain. Minus, so using the binomial theorem and neglecting higher order terms, I can just simplify dou u square and dou u by dou x is a smaller term. Square of the smaller term is again still smaller, so I am neglecting those two terms. So I am left with only dx plus dou u by dou x into dx. Okay. So a dash b dash is what? Dx plus dou u by dou x to dx. Now use this in the equation 1, that is epsilon x strain equal to change in length. Change in length means what has changed is dx plus dou u by dou x into dx minus original length was dx. I have used it, divided by original length dx. So if I take dx outside, this is 1 plus dou u by dou x into dx. Dx cancels, 1 minus 1 gets cancelled. So strain in the direction, please remember this term, epsilon x, change in strain or strain in the x direction is given by dou u by dou x. What is this? Strain in the x direction is dou u by dou x. Similarly, when it changes to y, it changes to v and y. Similarly, when it changes to epsilon z, it changes to w and z, because u, v, w are displacement in x, y, z directions, right? So we have obtained three direct stresses here, strains here, epsilon x, epsilon y and epsilon z. Now how to find the shear strains? Now you observe here, shear strain in the element. The shear strain represents the amount of distortion, that is ABCD, and that is denoted in the gamma xy direction. So whatever the shear strain I want to convey here is here, that is alpha. You can see here, this alpha is the shear strain, beta is the another shear strain. So gamma xy means in xy plane, what is the shear strain happening? So according to that, dou v by dou x and dou u by dou y, dou v by dou x, dou v by dou x, dou v by dou x plus dou u by dou y, dou u by dou y. So it's an easy way to remember this. gamma xy if I am writing gamma xy if I am writing, first you write dou x and dou y, dou by dou x and dou by dou y, you write it. Then wherever you have written x, instead of writing u, you write v. Wherever you written y, you can write instead of u, you can write it as gamma xy equal to dou by dou x plus dou by dou y. Instead of, for x displacement is u, but you write it as v for y. Similarly, where y is written, instead of u v, you write it as u. So that forms our shear strain in the material, that is gamma xy equal to dou v by dou x, dou u by dou y. So these are alpha plus beta, that is the total strain, shear strain in the material. So is this point clear to everyone, how to write the shear strain? How to write the shear strain, is it clear to everyone? Okay. Now, similarly, I can write for the remaining terms also. You just observe here. Epsilon z, I had written it as dou w by dou z, because w is the direction of, so w is the displacement in the direction of z, right? So epsilon y, I can write it similar to epsilon x, that is dou v by dou y, and epsilon x equal to dou u divided by dou x, right? Now gamma xy, just now I wrote what it is. First you write dou by dou x plus dou by dou y. Now wherever xy, if you are writing, for x displacement is u, but you write it as v, and for y displacement is v, you write it as u when it is shear strain. Now if I am writing for gamma yz, you tell me what I should write. Yz, dou by dou y, you write it first, dou by dou z, you write it first. Then in for displacement in y direction, that is v, you write it as w for z. For displacement in z direction, it is w, you write it as v. Similarly, for gamma xz or zx, you write it as dou by dou x, dou by dou z. Okay. For displacement in x direction, instead of writing u, you write w for z. And for z, the displacement is w, you write it as u, because you are interchanging it. So this is how you write the shear strains in the given case. For any three-dimensional element, if you want to write the shear stress and shear strains, you can write it like this. So these are known as strain displacement equations. They can ask you strain displacement equations. So that's in your syllabus, strain displacement equation. This forms the fundamental thing. In your learning, that once you learn these things, then you can proceed with writing the remaining stress strain relations. So strain, I know, if I multiply with Young's modulus, I can find out the stress in the material. So that is what they have written it here, right? So this we will go in detail in the next class also. But now I'm just showing that epsilon x, normal strains, epsilon x if I'm determining in a three-dimensional body. So 1 by E, right, into sigma x, stress in x direction, because it is x direction in epsilon x is in x direction. Sigma x is normal, sigma x by E will be normal strain, minus nu, Poisson's ratio, nu into sigma y will be strain, lateral strain. In y and z become lateral directions if a load is applied in x. So nu into sigma y will be lateral strain in that direction, minus nu into sigma z will be lateral strain in that direction. So this is epsilon x. So this is stress strain relation for a homogeneous isotropic linearly elastic material subjected to a general three-dimensional deformation as follows, right? Similarly, I can write for y. Whenever I am writing y direction becomes direct or along that line. Therefore, sigma y by E is normal or direct. And lateral direction become x and z minus nu into sigma z minus sigma x. Then epsilon z is equal to 1 by E. Similarly, I can write epsilon z is equal to 1 by E into sigma z, because in the z direction, it is longitudinal, lateral direction become x and y. Therefore, minus nu into sigma x minus sigma y. So these equations you remember, but we are hardly applying here in this particular module. In future modules, we can use it. Similarly, I can write for shear strains using shear stresses. So what is shear stress to shear strain given by anybody? Ratio of shear stress to shear strain. Ratio of shear stress to shear strain is rigidity modulus or modulus of rigidity.
Poisson's.
Shear stress to shear strain is rigidity modulus or modulus of rigidity. Poisson's ratio nu is given by ratio of lateral strain to longitudinal strain. Lateral strain to longitudinal strain is known as Poisson's ratio. Poisson's ratio is ratio of lateral strain to longitudinal strain, right? So we make use of it and write the relations, which is independent of Poisson's ratio is defined as you can see in the slide, that Poisson's ratio we have defined it as the first step, unit lateral contraction divided by unit axial elongation, nu equal to minus unit lateral negative of lateral contraction divided by axial elongation or lateral strain to longitudinal strain. That's what we have learned it in an easier way, right? So the meeting will be going to end in a minute. So we'll continue this in the next class also and go ahead with a few more topics. That is next you have plane stress and plane strain condition. This is stress strain relations. Plane stress and plane strain common 5 marks question. Right? So all these things you can write it as a notes and keep it aside whenever you are starting with the class, right? So difference